China's military exercises in Taiwan are looking less and less like drills and more like a real invasion. Today, on day 3 of these drills, a Chinese aircraft carrier effectively sealed off the island while combat jets simulated attacks on important military targets. It's getting very scary for Taiwan, especially after President Macron of France urged Europe to not take sides on the issue. Well, joining me now to talk about this is Head of Research at Strategic Analysis Australia, Marcus Hellyer. Marcus, thanks for your time. How long until one of these war drills becomes real life war?
Look, that's the $64,000 question, and I think different observers have different views on that, but I think the consensus view is that time is ticking. So whether it's 2 years, 3 years, or sometime later in the 2020s, I think most professional observers would say that it's going to happen.
Now, while the Chinese will say these are just war games or war drills, they are, reports are, they've encroached into Taiwanese airspace. These are clearly acts of aggression. How should the world be responding to them now? And how would the Taiwanese, or should the Taiwanese be responding to them, do you think?
Well, the world is responding in different ways, and so I think the AUKUS partnership, through which Australia is acquiring nuclear submarines and also access to other US and UK technology, is a way that the world is responding. It's demonstrating resolve, and it's demonstrating a commitment to a strong US presence in the Western Pacific. So the world is responding. Another example of that is that the US Speaker of the House of Representatives met with the Taiwanese president as she came through the US. Another US congressional delegation is currently visiting Taiwan. So there's very strong signs from the US that they are backing Taiwan. As you noted, President Macron recently sort of seemed to waver a little. We can interpret that in different ways. I think the key point to remember is that many countries, including Australia, have been hesitant to offer a very firm guarantee or to make a firm commitment of what they would do should China invade Taiwan. So I don't think we should say that Europe is getting wobbly. I think it was always going to be a little remote to think that European soldiers and planes and ships would show up off Taiwan should China invade. So I wouldn't sort of worry too much about President Macron's recent comments. I think there's plenty of evidence to show that the Europeans are very interested in the Indo-Pacific. They want a presence in the Indo-Pacific, and they are pushing back on a lot of the Chinese Communist Party's bad behaviour in the Indo-Pacific. So I wouldn't read too much into what President Macron is doing. The main thing is that the US is showing resolve. Australia is showing resolve. But I would say that there is a lot more that we can be doing in terms of investing in our Defence Force.
Well, which is a great segue into a report that was in the Financial Review today, Marcus. The Defence Department budget is getting a shake-up, and I quote, "A hatchet to frontline budgets," was reported by one insider. Program managers are told to trim 10 to 15% from their sustainment budgets to free up billions to buy new weapons. Now, alarm has been raised this could hurt maintenance and operating costs of warships, aircraft, and this is at a time, of course, where we've got a growing military, aggressive military from China. Should we be concerned about this in these reports?
I think we should be. So if we go back to when the previous government left office, it left behind a steadily increasing defence budget that projected out 10 years. So 10 years of real increases on top of 7 years previously of real budget increases. The problem is that funding is not enough to afford Defence's very ambitious acquisition program of new military equipment. And on top of that, we now have to acquire nuclear submarines instead of the previous plan for conventional submarines. So essentially, we're trying to cram more into that funding envelope, and something has to give. There simply isn't enough in that funding envelope to afford nuclear submarines plus all of the other capabilities that defence needs to buy. So something has to give. What is that? Well, it looks like from these reports, and I can't confirm them, but there's a ring of truth to them, and that is to free up money to buy new equipment, including ramping up the nuclear submarine program, they're going to have to make cuts elsewhere. Now, it's very unpopular to cut numbers of service personnel, so that is always a measure of last resort. So if you can't dip into your people budget or your acquisition budget, the thing that is left is your sustainment budget. So essentially your operating budget. And that seems to be where defence is making cuts. The problem with doing that, however, is you run down the readiness of the force. So less maintenance, less training, less repairs means the force is less ready to go when it's time, when the button is pushed and you have to deploy. Yep. And so that's the problem that we're facing.
Yep.
And
that, as you said, Marcus, this is getting closer and closer, it appears to be. Unfortunately, I have to leave it there because I'm out of time. But Marcus Hellyer, thanks very much for joining me on Sharry tonight. Really appreciate it.